Okay, I suggest we get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar, Achieve More with RPA, the path to digital transformation. Today we have three great guests from three great companies, actually four great companies, including Scalefocus. I will let the guests introduce themselves. So let's start with the ladies first. Vesna.
Hello everyone, my name is Vesna Popovic and I'm process management expert at A1 Serbia. I'm working here for 14 years and mostly I'm responsible for digital transformation topics.
Excellent, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Maya, you're next.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Maya Milanova. I come to the webinar with over 20 years of business experience, primarily in the outsourcing sector, leading some of the larger ITO and BPO centers in Bulgaria. Currently, I lead FlowLogic. This is a business process services and solutions company. And RPA is one of our most interesting focus areas. Thanks for inviting me, Viktor.
Thank you very much for joining us, Maya. And next we have Marc. Marc, please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Marc-Joël Fortelny. I work since 1.5 years for OMV, which is an oil and gas and petrochemicals integrated circular company now. So quite some things going on, also quite some transformation regarding business and also, of course, the digital path. My experiences in general with digitalization, whatever you think about that one. And I started 7 years ago when, in that case, UiPath, a very prominent RPA program, was for free, and I automated my own expenses, and then I never stopped.
Thanks, that was a great introduction. Okay, since we have a different audience, I mean, with different experience in the RPA, so today we're going to start by explaining very briefly what RPA is and how your business or company can benefit from it. And then later we'll touch also some advanced topics for the audience with experience in the RPA area. So let's start by explaining what exactly is RPA. Vesna, can you explain your definition of RPA and your experience?
If we are talking about RPA from business process view, then we can talk about putting a robot for some of the activities that are time consuming, that they need a lot of manual work and performed by people, by employees. Then you can talk about efficiency and robotization.
Okay, thanks. So Maya, we heard the explanation from process point of view. What is your definition from business point of view about RPA?
Yeah, actually, I would like to start with the earlier days, a few years ago, when everyone was thinking of RPA as a real robot. Marc was showing one on his back at the moment in time. And at the end of the day, this is a very simplistic program that is helping the humans to really get rid of the most boring, repetitive and transactional work. And that is helping the businesses and the companies to execute those most boring and repetitive, but definitely necessary from business point of view activities, and switch from one screen to another, from one program to another, something that cannot be really integrated into a single system, and that we want to avoid doing it manually. We'll speak about that later, why we want to avoid to do that manually, I guess.
Excellent, nice. And maybe it will be also interesting to understand from a technical point of view, what is RPA, Marc?
Okay, only 2 sentences. That's a bit
no. You have 7 sentences.
Then it's easy. So essentially, there is a base for all Windows programs called .NET, and therefore you can access different applications. It can be SAP as a client, it can be Excel, it can be your various programs. The robot can access it through certain kind of technical components. I don't go into details there, so don't jump off. But those activities are being used by studio developers. So for example, you say, I will open up the Excel, I will get the data out of it, then I will enter it in SAP. So something very small. And they do it with not just lines of code. I don't like that too much as well. If you have too many lines of code at once, because then you have to think quite hard why something is not working. You have components. So if, you slice them up just as your business process, and you have to imagine a bit more details, like in your PowerPoint with all of your little symbols, the process is running through, and essentially you build it in your studio, and then the robot can perform those actions.
Just a follow-up question, if I may. So can we have RPA in the different operating system like Windows, Linux, and Mac, or it works only in one operating system?
Most RPA systems are based on .NET. Linux will get, so essentially .NET 5.0 will be also running on Linux. So therefore it will be natively automated, but your base, so normal robot is running on Windows normally, okay. But you can have, for example, a link to it. So it does not have to perform directly on a system. Let's say it's a terminal host system, the black screen with the white letters, some people are knowing it. It's a very old system, often used by banks still and by insurance companies. And you can access it maybe via your web browser. And then the robot has no problem with the web browser. So it does not always have to be on the end system. But yeah, good question. Mostly it's actually Windows. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So let's proceed further according to the agenda. One of the first thing that a person should do when starting the RPA initiative is the question how to select the right process to automate. So Vesna, from your experience, what was the approach that you took in A1 by selecting the processes which to start with?
We had several initiatives in our customer service department and in our logistic department, because those two are the biggest. And from process point of view, we had a lot of points where we need to go through in order to finish something. For example, in a back office, when we have a customers, we cannot finish everything in a first line with our customers. Then we need to go to the back office, then from back office to third, and so on. Then we saw that we have a lot of manual work, especially in SAP, and repetitive work. And then we started like a brainstorming. So let's see what we can do, how to optimize those things. And that was, we have a lot of examples in our customer service, but also in a logistic. It is, you have a lot of actions in SAP, and there are some simple things that can be done and automized. So first, you need to see where are bottlenecks, and especially those things that you are repeating every day, where you're making reports, etc. I think the start is the hardest, and execution is easier.
Okay, good. By the way, for the participants, at the end of the webinar, we're gonna have 10 to 15 minutes for question and answers. So if you have questions, please, there is a Q&A. Write the questions at the end. Our guests will answer your questions. So Maya, when you're consulting your customers, what is the advice you give them regarding the very important part of selecting the process? From business perspective, what is your advice and approach in general?
Yeah, so first of all, it's important that there is a serious business decision that this is an agenda the company wants to pursue. If it is a single department or single person agenda, it's probably not going to fly, or even if it happens, it will be a slow and painful and very lengthy process. Therefore, the first condition is really that there is at least a general common understanding and decision that this is a strategic choice for the company. Second, where to start from, I would partially repeat what Vesna said. It's important to know the pain points. And as a very first start, one should not pick up the biggest pain, because that biggest pain might take a bit longer to address. It's really about showing that it can work, proving that this is the right approach for your department or for your business. So really pick up a smaller scope. What is a smaller scope? It's an activity between probably 7 to 10 steps, and ask around your middle management and first line management, because those are the people who know where are the operational pains. Okay, so a robot is not really to solve the world, yeah, nor is to bring your next generation business. A robot is really to free up from the boring, from the repetitive tasks, where the businesses spend a lot of time to fix mistakes or to coordinate between themselves. And once they can free up from that time, then they can really focus on what matters to them. Therefore, the start should be small, a painful activity, 7 to 10 steps. That would be my advice.
Okay, thanks. Mark, we all know that in every company there are some simple processes, and there are some very, very complex and lengthy processes. So can you share from your experience, how long does it take in the best case scenario to automate a process? And in the worst case scenario, maybe you can give an example with some very, very complicated process with many steps and activities. Can you elaborate a little bit more here?
Sure. So essentially, like Maya already said, if there are just a few steps, that essentially means you, ideally, we call it mostly happy path, because nothing is going wrong. So the exceptions, if you're programmed, then take a bit longer mostly. But if I read an Excel, have 5 fields to fill in SAP, and nothing is going wrong, I can build this in less than a day, no problem. If you have it very complex, so actually you have 50, 60 steps and a lot of exceptions, a lot of business handling, business exceptions. For example, a customer is blocked, it needs an extra credit limit when you do an order automation, for example, then you come into higher and higher complexity. Then, for example, the application may change. So for that one, you have to also think about, if something is changing, is my robot also changing automatically? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. You have to monitor it. And also, the robot has to tell you what's wrong or what has been changed. So the idea behind that is you can automate something very small in a day. But if it's very complex, it's not unusual that it goes for months. If you now think about API development, you will laugh about it and say, months is very fast still. So overall, I would say if you are able to automate with APIs, and it's a very big process and very important to have it like trading in milliseconds, go for that one. Yeah? But sometimes it's just not possible, and you maybe have not something in the milliseconds, which has to be really, really fast and optimized. You can have the robots, and if you have a comparison between robots and APIs, for example, if somebody is thinking about that one, because you get really complex with RPA, you could also maybe think about API. Normally APIs, because they have to be perfect. The robot, for example, can write you an email and say, please give me this value. I don't know how to proceed. The API will not do that. Yeah. So a lot of tech guys have to resolve that one. And that's why overall you could say you have 4 to 5 digits for an RPA development and normally 5 to 6 digits for an API development. So roundabout. And I'm talking about API development, not that you configure an API, but you have to enrich an API to get your special business processes done. So to make it short.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Good. So Vesna, typically telecoms are like a best case example for RPA because they're big back office. They're very often a variety of UI from different software systems and platforms, and the people in the back office, they have to switch between many different applications, and that's not very efficient. So can you give us an example of a process which in your case was automated very, very successfully with an RPA?
Well, I have a lot of cases.
Even better. Let's start with the best one.
There are lots of them, really. But you know, for example, the one I remember when I was starting to work in the company, people were calling and asking for the unlock code for devices. You know, if you were
yes, we all remember this.
You remember it was a lot of time ago. Now all devices are open, but still we see that there are a lot of customers using those old devices, and now they want to put, you know, another SIM card. So they are asking for us to give them the unlock code. Then we don't have it. Then we are open a ticket, sending it to back office. Then back office is contacting vendors, and we start to. Vendors are sending us back the unlock code, and we're putting in Excel, making a small base, you know. And then we saw from you know, when time passed, that we have a huge number of unlock codes in Excel, you know, in different Excel, in different sheets of the Excels. And then we decided to put all those Excels at one place and to make like a to simply automate this and to make like a small website. Now it looks like a website, and now people, you know, our first line agents are just entering the device and automatically getting the unlock code. So it's just, you know, you need 1 second to find the unlock code, and this saved a lot of time. Also, customers, they have a lot of add-ons, etc., and then you need to deactivate them or activate, and there are some internal processes, you know, how many systems we have, billing, charging, CRM, etc. And then we needed some time to the architect, because of the architecture of our systems, we needed some time to deactivate those add-ons. And now, and they were deactivated one by one. Now with robotization, at the end of the day, all tickets are picked, and all those add-ons are deactivated at the same time. Tickets are closed, and SMS is sent to the customer. Of course, not in the evening, in the next morning, but it is just one ticket per customer, and massive deactivation. Those are from customer service point of view, but there are a lot of logistic examples where colleagues were able to, Mark just said, in one day to automate all the processes that are in SAP. For example, for some internal orders, we have a lot of internal orders for our needs. There are more than one, I don't know, for example, if there are more than 1,000 employees, you can imagine how many internal orders there are per day. and those Excels are just located in one place. Robot picks them and do the rest in the SAP. So no manual work, is just to put the Excel at the right place, and that's it. Sit down and wait for the end of the day.
How long did it take you to automate this this process, and how many people in general, do you know?
For those brainstorming sessions, of course, you need more people, etc. But when you pick the right examples for those simple one, it's between 1 and 7 days. We had some cases for the complicated processes. We needed just more time in order to find, you know, where is the bottleneck, and to find the right thing where you can automate, because there are a lot of things because of the architecture of the systems, and we needed like 2 or 3 months. But that's just 1 or 2 cases. But for the most of them, it's one week, up to 1 week.
Okay, nice, good. So Maya, can you explain a little bit more, because at the end of the day, RPA, it's all about of return of investment, right? The main purpose is you invest in automating a process, which later that investment brings a lot of cost saving. So can you elaborate more on that? What is do you have like a benchmark for how fast you can see that return of investment for the different processes in general? I mean, it really depends on the process, but you know, in average, do you have such, you know, rough measure how fast do you get your return of investment?
So first of all, to start measuring, you do need a process. It all starts with the process, okay? Once you select the scope that you want to robotize with RPA, then you may choose to do that to concept proof, and then you will not be really looking for any return. It may even cost you a bit more than the manually done work. But if we take the established already practice in utilizing RPA, like in the case of Vesna, like in the case of Marc and many other companies, then depending on the size of the automation, the size of the process, the complexity and the exceptions that are to be considered, but on average, a return should really come between 6 to 9 months, okay? Some more aggressive agendas may even expect that to come sooner, 3 to 6 months. But I've seen in the past some promises after 12 months, after 15 months, that's too long. I mean, no one can wait for 15 months anymore. We even don't know what will happen after 3 months sometimes. So therefore, I go back to my first point that the scope picking up should be really smart, and rather start small and then connect the pieces, rather than really invest a lot of time, allow a lot of possible points of mistakes, and then go back and fix them even longer. So I don't know how much I answer your question, but it's not so straightforward.
Yes.
I think the other point here to stress is that such kind of measurement is really important, because another kind of mistake I've seen in the past is that managers would say, let us first build a good example and then we will start measuring. But the measurement is part of the good example. Otherwise, you cannot show your case. If you want to show your case, you need to know the scope, you need to know the length, you need to know how much it costed you to develop all that, and you need to know how much you're optimizing. Even if optimization means that you redirected people to start doing something else, that is with a higher added value.
Yeah, and also to add to everything that you said, we need to take in consideration that very often business process change, and they might change along the the automation initiative, and you need to have that in mind. That's also really important. Okay, Mark, I have interesting question for you. You mentioned that in some cases the process, they might be very complicated, 60 steps or even more. Some companies they have integration platforms who work on API level. They have also BPM, business process management platforms, and in addition to that, they have RPA. Now, when deciding to optimize a specific process and to automate it even further, you can do this on API level in the integration platform. You can do this also in the BPM platform and in the RPA. Is there something like a general rule in which you can decide where is best to do the process changes and how to make sure that all these platforms they work together properly?
Well, short answer is no, because general rules in that case, it's a bit dangerous. We have a bigger process which launched recently called Smart Credit Limit. It used to be more manual and more related to very big customers, and there's been a change in Romania where you're considering a lot of smaller customers, and suddenly you go from a couple of hundred to many thousands of customers. And of course, you could have played out a big BPM, you could have built your extra platform and so on. But for the beginning, it was important to have one particular part. This smart credit limit process is checking the credit limits of the customer, having a financial evaluation. We are using APIs in there with, in that case, COFAS. So I think it's maybe even known in Bulgaria, and in that region should have the same name. Sometimes they rename themselves a bit depending on the country. But long story short, you have business rules where it's saying if you have this kind of financial performance, the result of the robot is this and this. And if you do this step, then it has to be manually checked on that part, and so on and so on. But long story short, sometimes it's necessary to have more than one process. So now we're not talking about smart credit limits, but maybe a full integration of your customers. And then I would say, of course, you can still do it with RPA, but it maybe does not make sense, because if you want to change a rule and it has not been properly designed in RPA, then you have to change all of the robots on some parts where the developers maybe after a couple of years are not the same anymore. They have to find it. And in BPM, you can centrally change those rules. So if there's maybe a general answer still, if you have more than 100 business rules or a very high number, it makes change to at least integrate BPM and not do it just with RPA, even if you could do it. That would be my advice, because later on regulation is changing, laws are changing in general, reporting standards are changing, and if you properly program it in RPA, you can still do it, but I would not advise it, especially for beginners, to say, I can build any rule, no problem, and after 5 years to say, oh my God, what did we do there? Yeah? That should not happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Viktor, I want to actually add a few more things to what Mark just said. It relates back to how we select the scope in a smart way. The other thing is that one should realize the robot is not live forever. I mean, it requires maintenance. It also requires adjustment. Sometimes it requires end of life. And this is another reason why the selection process is really, really important, because if you plan for the robot to stay alive for 3 years and you calculate your return on investment to come after 18 months, then it's a wrong calculation. So the time horizon really should be 9 to 12 months, in my view. I don't know what Mark thinks, but it really popped up when he was speaking about that, to share this thought with all of you.
I agree. So we also tend to have it well below 1 year. What I also have to say, what is return on investment? Maybe just a side remark. Sometimes it's extremely important to actually have more values than just the hours, just the euros behind it. You still send that. Doesn't matter. Zoom is going wrong. So how should I put it? If you have a time frame which is very, very short, for example, our SAP HANA migration, you have to check in just a few hours if everything has been migrated properly. Yes, of course you can do it manually, yeah, but you will not have the time. And now if you measure a robot running just in this time frame, then the euros will not be as nice, yeah, because it's just 6 hours one time. But to make sure that everything is right is much more important than this. Also with compliance regarding penalties and so on. So the idea behind there is, of course, not just seeing the standard euros and the standard hours, what you can save. Sometimes it's about people are able to cut off the overtime hours. They can go home earlier if it's a Friday. This is also a nice thing in Austria. If you have 38 hours a week and you don't want to be in the office all the time, makes more sense now with less home office, of course. But you have to think about that one as well. And sometimes those are not easily calculatable as euros or hours, but there are also those benefits, I would say.
Okay.
There are always a lot of reports, Mark, that you need to do, at the end of the day. So it's better for a robot to perform them, and then you can go home and relax.
Nice. So just remind to the audience again that you have the right to ask questions for free. I repeat, for free. So don't be shy. If you have questions, there is a question and answer Q&A button. Use it and ask. Good. So let's move then to the next topic: how to mitigate internal resistance. Very often, whenever you start a new initiative in a company, there is resistance, and the question here is how to mitigate that and how to later properly manage the change for the automated processes. So Vesna, can you share what did you have resistance in your case? Was it difficult to convince the others to start that initiative? Because at the end of the day, sometimes as a result of the RPA, we might have some people without the job that they're used to do before. And there is an impact also from that perspective. It would be interesting to understand more from your
That's
case.
true, but when I was talking with my colleagues, not that much, to be honest, but then I was thinking, and I was talking here internally, why it is like that. And I have a theory, that trust is a very important aspect of RPA. When employees have a trust in a company, in a leadership team, in the activities that are performed in a company, such like RPA, then it's to be honest, it's a halfway. At least it was our case. It was halfway done. Then when people realize at the end that they can breathe and relax, themselves from the repetitive tasks, that they can achieve even more beyond
reduce stress
limits. Sometimes we do not know our limits because we are keep working on the repetitive tasks, and then people start seeking for the new things to be automated. We introduced a new platform here, so everyone can submit their own idea and share the ideas. It's not just about RPA, about everything that they see like a gap and would like to be done, like a small things that will that impacts our life, and also for the RPA, it's a good thing. Then you will start receiving a lot of emails with subject RPA, like Mark has every day. He shared with us.
He cannot filter using that word.
Just RPA. You have a subject RPA and Mark. Everyone in company knows that Mark is doing it. So that's to be honest, that's the starting. Of course, you always have a resistance, but it is in the beginning. It can be easily handled. Then the managers will have a time to talk to the people, and will be much more involved in everyday tasks. So it's very good. To be honest, at least we have a good examples. We didn't have that much resistance because it was clearly communicated.
Yeah, you talk so passionate about the job you're doing. I wish all of the team members were that passionate about their job.
Thank you. I am, to be honest, at the moment, I'm very satisfied with the things I'm doing here. So. Good.
Okay, so maybe you can send a record of this meeting to your boss. He will appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good. So Maya, can you elaborate also on this question, maybe on the change management part?
Oh, definitely. That's my passion, in fact. When we speak about passion in the work, that's the passionate part of the webinar, indeed. That's really my passion. Why is that? Because it's very, very important also how the whole subject is put in place. And when I see it, I really mean it from real experience. I've seen in the past an example where it was started just top down. And while I say that the senior decision is important, the management buy-in is important, it is equally important that the people do understand that agenda, the people that will need to co-work with the robots, the people that will need to initiate the sub-processes that are to be automated. And why is that important? Because there is natural fear of I will remain without job tomorrow. Okay, now we know much more about those robots. We know that they cannot overtake our jobs. We know more and more that they can help us, but an information campaign of this kind is really important. The other part of the change management that is less known yet is the fact that those robots will have to become integral part of the team. Okay, the funny part of it is that a good practice is to give names after the robots, really people names, and colleagues take that positively. But the other aspect is that there are some co-workers who need to understand the work that is being done, because believe it or not, those robots, they also do have managers at the end. They are robot men. They become part of the real team. And like a colleague said recently, the team is being engendered by the robots. It really is. So for the good or for the bad, I do think that once those robots are integrated into a team, and a normal team size, when we speak about more transactional activities, is 10, 15, sometimes 20 team members. And when you bring in 2 or 3 of them who work 24/7, sometimes we need to help them because they get stuck, because there is an exception, because the system got restarted last night, or something just happened, and we need to help those robots to be successful. So team integration is also critical. And the last piece, and that relates also back to the measurement, how to engage people to initiate more and more ideas. There are some kind of recognition programs that bigger companies especially do apply. And there is a kind of a register, there is a kind of a competition, and there are also rewards in a certain period of time. And the last point I want to share, I realize I speak a bit too long now, but that's my passion, you know. So the last piece I want to mention here is the fact that the demand also needs to be managed, because once you make it too fancy, too interesting, or too demanding, then you may receive too many ideas that are to be processed, or too many requests that are to be developed, and then you need to excuse me, then you need to have a good system to prioritize as well.
Okay.
But that will be later.
Thanks a lot. We have a very, very good statement here that even robots have managers. That's pretty bad news for the robots, but I think it's good because nowadays not just the human who will suffer from management, but also the robots. So Mark, tell me, in your case, because you're such a knowledgeable person in that area, was it much easier when you were trying to convince the other team members to work together and help you? Can you share more about your case?
Do you mean a few years back or right now?
Yes, no, at the beginning, you know, when you were starting RPA. I guess now it's much easier, right? Because you have already, you have implemented processes, people know what it is, they see the real benefits, but how was it at the beginning?
So in the beginning, in comparison, if you're coming from an IT background, everybody was like, yes, I know screen scraping from the 80s or this one, and I know this kind of automation, and everybody wanted to say, it's just a marketing gag, more or less. And I also have to say, if you compare your iPads 2014 and 2021 with a full hyper automation platform, or Pega or Automation Anywhere, or Blue Prism, they improved a lot. So there's also a certain kind of maturity of the software. And if you have a team member wanting to start with a new software, imagine if you start with SAP, for example, nobody explains anything to you and you have to do transactions, you're maybe a bit lost. Yeah? The same is, of course, with RPA in the beginning, but there's a lot of material, a lot of knowledge now around, which was not there a few years ago. So in 2014, there was no big academy explaining on how to do the automation. You could maybe tell somebody, hey, I'm doing those few steps in the studio and it's working out. And then another guy saying, yeah, I just do this kind of lines and I do the same stuff. And then I looked at the lines from the other developer and I was like, my code is easier to understand and also easier to change. And I think that's something which is being realized now. But back then, every new technology is a certain kind of novelty at the beginning. And with the maturity, you have the experts, you have the arguments, you have the experience. And then everybody will tell you, yes, this is a very good technology. Yes, it improves us and our ways of being digital, more or less. But when you start off, you have to prove it. So that's why I made a lot of proof of concepts. I used to be a consultant. And after proving the technology over and over again, it's getting a bit annoying maybe. Yeah. So if you're working in a team and you know yourself with your colleagues, hey, it's working out, it's cool. And you have to, mostly in that case, I had to tell customers, this is how you could use it. And then they are saying, but what happens if you do this? What happens if you do that? For example, in banking, it was quite interesting where they thought, if you are a developer, you could easily get money. Myself in the banking, you just get a transaction to yourself, no problem. And I told them there's an audit process. You have to develop it. People have to check it. It's much easier if you have two drinking buddies at the bank and saying, hey, I'll do a transaction and you approve it. That's much easier than to have a protocolled robot shifting money around. So a lot of discussions were about compliance. Is it actually better? Shouldn't I do code development and so on? And now with the experience, you can tell somebody, hey, you need 6 months, I need 2 weeks. Not for every business case, of course, but for some. And then you can discuss it completely differently with colleagues, with customers. So the perception has changed tremendously. And what I have to maybe add as a last sentence, RPA itself is already complicated to a certain degree because you have to read about it to understand a bit more what is this mysterious robot. I remember people saying there's a robot in front of the laptop and typing the stuff in. Yeah, so it's not like It's a software robot. But RPA is shifting to something which is not a beer, but called IPA, Intelligent Process Automation, which essentially means you have this novelty technology, which is now matured, and you add the threatening acronym of AI, artificial intelligence. What that does that mean again? On OCR, optical character recognition, you can read paper, and so on and so on. And so the RPA solution providers are shifting more towards platforms where you can use more and more things, because originally you had those very easy steps, and you should definitely start with that one. So I would not go after your, what was it said, the biggest pain point, and then you have the biggest project and the biggest headache afterwards. You should start small with RPA, but there is more to come for it, and helping people more, because if you don't like to have repetitive tasks, now imagine it with paper, yeah? Or having giant Excels all the time, transforming them to have a decision point, and suddenly you can have an AI, and automatically the AI calculates a certain kind of churn rate of your customers. And you did it manually, and you needed days and weeks, and suddenly the robot needs a couple of hours. So that's something you should have also in mind, that even that one is shifting. So a few years from now, we will talk about it. RPA is now really matured, plus this IPA with the platforms, and then it's another discussion again.
Okay, good. Thanks for this. So we have around 12 minutes left. I suggest we cover the last topic, which is what are the benefits from RPA in short, mid, and long term. At the beginning of this webinar, we started with explaining what are the right process to start. Then we covered during the implementation how to convince the other team members to cooperate. And now let's see what are the results and business benefits from RPA once you have this process implemented. So who wants to start? Vesna,
I will.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Then Maya will jump in. From her point of view. So to be honest, we talked a lot about return of investment and measurement, and people are wondering, how then I will fire some people, etc. But it's not all about that. With RPA at the moment, like Mark just said, at the moment we are following digital transformation. So we are on our way with RPA to follow the future. And we are changing the way we did the things. So people can really be focused on the tasks that need attention. You know, when you are doing some reports every day, then you're not giving that much attention. So you're giving attention to very important things. Then you start thinking strategically. Then you're taking in your hands some activities, projects, and etc. And those manual tasks, you're just leaving them to robots. So now you start loving robots, and robots are friends with the managers. And you just leave it to them. To be honest, companies are growing. For example, telco is growing. You're growing from OMV is also growing. You know, from every year we are counting more and more of us, and things are becoming bigger with the RPA. Then for those repetitive things, you don't need to hire more people. You are not hiring more people, but the people that are in the company, they have more qualities, and then the managers can be really focused to work with the people to grow them up, not just to spend time for hiring people. So that's that's in short. I leave the word to Maya now.
Thanks. So in the short term, I do believe that the biggest benefit from putting a robot in place is a natural way to enforce some processes to be put in order, because you can't really automate something that is being remembered. How do you do that? Oh, Maya knows that. How do you do that? Oh, Viktor knows how to do. We cannot rely on remembering how to do the things. We need to put them, first of all, in a process, in a simple see. It's even not a process. I know that it scares a lot of people. It's just a sequence of activities, a sequence of steps, how you perform a certain task. Okay, that's the process, as simple as that. But you need to follow the same sequence of steps, and you need to follow the same duration. And then you fall into a process, and then you can automate that. This is really the shortest term. And this is necessary because this is preparing us for something that Mark touched upon very shortly, but nicely, and this is the integrated automation platform. There is actually a recent survey from Gartner. They say that by 2022, like 90% of the bigger companies will have considered or already started implementing RPA. But what does that mean? Will they do that in isolation? I don't think so. I really doubt, actually. I believe that the successful RPA agenda can only come with a bigger strategy of integrated automation. Because we do have chatbots. Imagine an internal service center, like an HR service. Okay, how many vacation days do I have? Or where can I take that template to complete for taking time off or for whatever activity related to employment relations, okay? And then in this case, you do implement not only an RPA that is going to pass this template to the person, but you're going to integrate that with an internal chat system, whether with humans or with chatbots, it doesn't really matter. Then you're going to integrate that also with potential call center service that might be internal or might be integrated, and so on and so forth. But robot really starts small. So the short term is to put your process in order. The midterm is really to provide a higher added value, faster and cheaper end-to-end service, internal or external. And in the long term, to really put everything in an integrated automation platform.
Thanks a lot. Mark, your perspective?
Well, sometimes the benefits are a bit more unique. So when you think about something time critical and you have to shift a lot of data along certain kind of business rules somewhere, there is no API, it's across multiple systems. You would need to hire maybe 20 students, which then are really fed up with the process and will never work for you again. And maybe write something bad in Xing or Kununu or LinkedIn about how the company is horrible. So sometimes there are those manual solutions, or sometimes you need more than 2 months to hire all those people, if you have your proper procedures in the company. For me, sometimes RPA is actually, also from experience, the only solution to certain kind of business problems which you have, which I think itself is a benefit. So RPA can be quite big, quite small along the road for the companies, but I think it's like an extra puzzle piece which you should have, in my opinion. It's not, of course, for every company. I don't think that the 10 people company, which is not even using SAP, has to scale up tremendously. But if this 10 people company is having, for whatever reasons, 1 or 2 million customers and everything automated except a few little tweaks, then maybe it's good again. So it's very difficult to just say it with certain kind of numbers or benefits. It's just like this. You have to see a little bit the bigger picture, as Maya said. If you have something which can grow in integrated automation platform, and you maybe should also check. I'm talking about your iPath because I was working with all of the tools, and if you have your favorite where you get the things done, then of course you like it the most. But also check it for yourself, having a tender, having a checkup on the Gartner quadrants. Your iPath is up right there as a leader. And then you have to understand, do you want to have an automation journey? I also know customers from the past who said, yeah, RPA is a good benefit, but I just need now 2 more people. And then they hired 2 people, and I told them, yeah, that was your business case, essentially. You could have used half of the money, also seeing it in the long term, and have true automation and not throw just people at the problem. I would prefer to have less people, very smart people who are driving the digital transformation. And also what I think overall, what RPA actually means, you have a means of automate with software problems which you already had for quite some time. And that also means in the long run, that one I have to be honest about, you have to have different kind of people changing over the years and understanding digital transformation. Because in the past, you had hired people just doing the processes, and you do some trainings maybe with them, but they don't have this, what the youngsters are calling digital mindset, being a digital native or whatever. But in the long run, those people maybe they're not about liking the robot or liking the change, but they maybe can oppose you. And that's something I have not run into yet. I'm just imagining 10 years from now, if you now have a lot of people who don't want to change at all anymore. Some people are fed up that we're using Teams now, for example, or Zoom. They don't like it. Yeah, what is this cat filter? I cannot turn it off. Maybe I've seen that video with I think it was a lawyer in the US. So dealing with change can be quite interesting. So that's something what you should think about as well for your automation journey, where you say I want to have the right tools. And maybe as a last remark, nobody's discussing today that you need the SQL database. It's just something normal. But back in the day, they were like, oh, we have those paper lists. We have 40, 50 people writing on those paper lists. It's something okay. And nowadays you would say it's not okay. So it's just a change of where people are doing something and how highly educated they are. So treat your people well. Don't let them do too many repetitive tasks. That's just my last advice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and I can add just for 10 seconds a couple of numbers.
10 seconds we have. Okay.
Yes, so I would like to add that the RPA can reduce our errors by 70%, and that can actually automate like 90% of the repetitive work. Okay.
Yeah. Guys, thanks a lot for your time today. I think we had a wonderful discussion and webinar. I just want to remind to all participants that you will receive a video from the webinar, and if you want to see these beautiful and smart people again, you can watch it from time to time and to remind yourself about what RPA is and some of the advices. Vesna, Maya, Mark, thanks a lot. It was a great pleasure to have you here. I think we had a really very good discussion, and I'm looking forward to having another one with you maybe someday.
Thank you, Viktor. Thanks a lot for hosting us.
And thank you all participants for being part of this webinar. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.